Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this webinar about your NextGen Ministry Assistant, where NextGen Ministry meets NextGen Tech. I've got my friend Josh Burnett here. Welcome, Josh. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? So excited to be here.
Hey, and many of you are doing this already, but if you haven't, go into the comments. You might want to choose live chat instead of top chat, and then put your church, your role, and where you're located. Michelle wins so far with the title of Manager of Intentional Chaos.
Yeah, that's
Or
pretty
official
phenomenal.
title. Yeah, children's pastor, official title, but manager of intentional chaos. I kind of sometimes it's unintentional chaos too, though. Let's admit it. I mean, that's ministry, so that's a great title. And most people that work on staff at a church, you end up wearing multiple hats somehow. I see a lot of friends here in the chat, so go ahead and leave a comment there, and then throughout our whole time, put your questions there. I'm here just really to platform Josh and show you what Josh has created, what you can do with it in your ministry. We'll talk a little bit about AI. This is about leveraging AI. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of the high level of that here in the beginning, but we're really just going to make it practical. So put your questions there anytime throughout this hour that we're together. And I'll, try to get as many questions to Josh as I can, but mostly we're going to let you see what it can do. But before we jump into that, Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about, and let me say this first. I've known Josh for a long time because both of our churches were new church plants that were part of a dream to reach 20 churches by the year 2020 in the Baltimore, D.C. area, right? And so our church was started in 2006. Revolution was started in 2010. Did I get that right?
Yep,
All
that's right.
right. And Josh actually was a church planter. I just happened to work on staff at a church plant. Very different jobs. Okay, Josh had all the stress and the weight and the leadership and the preaching, all those things. I'm just along for the ride at my church. Those are very different roles. You led that church for 10 years, I think, right? Before
I did, yeah.
handing those reins over, which has just been, and it's still going right now in Annapolis, Maryland, which is really cool. But tell us about yourself, and then we'll talk about church.tech.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, and by the way, I completely reject what you just said about yourself. You hold a ton of stuff together, not just at community, but also for so many people, which is why so many people are showing up, which is awesome. So, yeah, thanks
Thanks,
for
man. I know
inviting me.
I considered church planning for that much. And then I was like, nah, you know what I mean? So you guys, you guys and girls, a different breed. When you can plan a church, be the lead person, that's a great thing. And we need more of it. So yeah, I'm glad you did that. And I'm also glad you're doing this stuff now too. But tell us a little about you, your family, and then we'll jump into this church.tech story, hit some AI questions, and then see what it can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Yeah. So, yeah, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I won't go deep dive on it, but uh, started going to church when I was 9 years old. The church made a profound impact on my life and on my family's life. Like things were not good when we started going to church. That's why we went there. And over the course of about 3 years of us getting really engaged with our church, it truly transformed my family's life. And because of that, and also just because I feel like God called me into ministry. From the time I was about 12 years old, I pretty much was like, I'm going to be a pastor. And then I found out about church planting. I was like, well, let's go do that. I mean, let's go start a church for people that don't have a church to go to. And so, yeah, moved to Annapolis in 2009, launched Revolution in 2010 and led that church for 10 years. And at the end of 2018, stepped into tech. And so, yeah, that's kind of how got to where I'm at now, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Also have an incredible wife who has been involved in church planting, was on staff with Stadia Church Planting for 10 years, and three incredible kids who, when we moved to Annapolis, the oldest one was I think 18 months old, and now she's got her learner's permit, which is just,
Yeah, it's crazy.
I feel like I am
Great
everybody
knowledge,
always talks
Josh.
about, oh, you start crying when your kids start getting old a whole lot. I'm like, yeah, it's true. I just I'm constantly just where did the time go? So
Could be
anyways,
crying for
yeah,
other reasons too. You got a kid driving, you got teenage drama probably coming. There's other reasons to cry when you're parenting older kids.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah. So, yep.
Cool. Well, tell us about church.tech and how, like, I know you've, I mean, there's, you know, what other people don't know too is you have worked on a few different type of tech projects, I'll call them, to help the church. And this is just one that has really taken root and now it's just doing a bunch of different things. But how did that get going?
Yeah. So when I stepped into tech from ministry, or pastoral ministry, I I was stepping in to start this new platform that we called Flourish. And the whole idea was that we were going to help the church plug people into volunteer roles with nonprofits in their community. I thought, I planted a church. How hard can a tech company be? We'll just get this thing going and, be massive blessing to the church at large. And it turns out it's pretty hard, especially if you have absolutely no ability to write a line of code. It's
Yeah,
even harder.
it's
So
a little challenge. Yeah.
so so I learned some really hard lessons on that front for about 3 years, and then met our technical co-founder, and then my wife actually joined our team as our COO, and then we met our technical co-founder, and things really started getting better. And so we were building this platform, called Flourish. And one of the things we knew was that we were going to need to get churches plugged into Flourish, and we were baking AI into Flourish, and we realized, oh, we could build some tools for the church right now that would serve exact like needs they already know they have. And yeah, and it would facilitate being able to serve the church, have a great tech relationship with churches, and then hopefully start launching volunteer opportunities to them from Flourish. And so that's kind of how we got in to the AI side of things, and how we launched church.tech. And honestly, like, we just made this little tiny version of it, and I sent it to some friends who were lead pastors, and they were like, "You've got to do this. Like, you've got to launch this platform." We're like, "Oh man, okay, sweet." So yeah, that's kind of how it came to be.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know I posted about this in one or two Facebook groups about AI because I feel like I don't really know, and some of you watching can let me know in the comments your thoughts and questions. But it's like I understand knowing church.tech and what it does, and I was one of those friends that got to use it in the early stages. Like, this is amazing, and then I started using it in my small group. Josh, I told Josh how I built my questions for this book we were reading off of using church.tech, and it's just amazing. And it's been, it's really helpful. Almost creating small group guides real quick just for my small group, my men's small group, for some books that we were reading. But I still don't know if I know, if you ask me, like, hey, especially church leaders, that is this audience, mostly family ministry leaders, kids, pastors, student pastors, NextGen, how are they using AI? My answer would be like, I don't know. And I asked that in one of these Facebook groups, or multiple. And a couple of the questions, I thought I just want to hit this one up front because it came up a couple times. Some people were concerned about, like, I don't know if safety is the right word, but like ethical nature of it, especially when you know that a lot of AI is just pulling other information off the internet, which is somebody else's information that they put there. So, and our friend Kerry Newhoff you're a partner, official partner with Kerry Newhoff for AI. He has a quote that I shared in an email to our list recently about the safety of it. But what would you say to that for people that have those very valid concerns about the ethical and safety nature of AI with church leaders and how we use it?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I would say two things. I would say, first and foremost, you are right to be concerned, and I'm glad that you are. I think that the ethical use of AI is an area that the church uh, absolutely has to step in and say, we are going to lead the charge on this. Like, we are going to create systems and be a part of creating systems that use AI. And when we talk about AI right now, I'm talking about large language models, which, ChatGPT,
Yeah, yeah.
Perplexity, Claude, that type of thing. So that's what I mean when I'm saying AI. There's lots of forms of AI, but the church has got to take a major role, and we actually have a unique opportunity in history right now. I think, like, this is like a pretty crazy inflection point. Like, I literally don't think there's been an inflection point like this in human history, like, maybe since Jesus, literally. Like, and I don't mean that in like some sort of heretical way. AI is not Jesus, but the church has the church has the best use case for AI of like if you look at like the whole market or the whole like global economy, the church has the best use case for AI. And the reason for that is this: when you're talking about generative AI or large language models, it uses context in order to answer questions. That's like the simplest way to think about it. It takes large amounts of data and understands the relationship between that data and a question you would ask it. And so it can produce a very human feeling result because it has all this context backing it up. And when you think about like who creates the most content, might not think about it, but it's the church. Like we
Sure.
rule on this front. Like
Yeah.
every single year in the US alone, 17 million sermons are preached just to adult services. So that's not counting children's
Kids,
ministry, youth
students. Yeah.
ministry, like young adults. It's not counting, men's and women's
Yeah. Yeah.
ministries, or any of the like celebrate recovery stuff that we produce enormous amounts of content. And so what we can do with that content using AI is really, really amazing. And so, one, you're right to be concerned. You should be concerned about the ethical use of it. And I would say that the ethics of like how the church actually uses AI really should be governed by a few things. Like this is just my opinion. Ethics is a tricky word, right? Because we would all say like, hey, we have a general Christian ethic that we would probably all agree to, but there's also nuance down to like, oh, well, is it okay to like use an illustration that another pastor used in their sermon or something like everybody's going to kind of disagree on that. You're going to get 100, we have 78
Sure.
people on, going to get 78 opinions on how
Yeah.
exactly to do well. So the first thing that I would say is that it's very important that pastors and church leaders understand AI and are using it. Even if they're just playing around with it, they need to know what it's capable of, because if they don't, they're not going to be able to speak into um, the ethics of it, frankly, from the jump. But then they're not going to understand what their congregation, their church, the kids in their kids ministry are experiencing via this avenue. And then two, like transparency. Like transparency is so key. The way that we use AI needs to be something that nobody's going to like catch us red-handed and we're going to feel ashamed. Like
Sure.
same way that I would not take somebody else's sermon and preach it word for word, because I don't think that's an ethical thing to do. It's not something where I've wrestled with the text and I've really discerned like, hey, this is what this means for me and how it applies to me and how it applies to my church. We shouldn't, and none of the tools we make would allow you to be like, write me a sermon about Ephesians 5. Like it just won't do that. Like you can do that on ChatGPT, but you can't do
Sure.
that on
It's not a very
tech.
good
And
one.
yeah,
That's for
exactly.
sure.
It's
It's
not
not
going
a
to be a
very
very
good
good
one.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the start on that front. The way
Cool.
that we're building the tools and stuff, we would say it's privacy by design. That's a big value for us, of like the privacy of every individual that's interacting with any of that content is paramount. And then also, just designing systems that, that really point people back to relationship with one another and not pushing them further or facilitating them getting further from one another. If you think about what social media has done to us, not as Christians, just as a species, it is
Sure.
it is allowed us to find silos and to hide out in those silos where we only hear what we want to hear, or we only hear things that we hate and therefore get more angry about them. And like
Mm-hmm.
ethical AI has the opportunity to pull us back together and to point us back to one another and not to push us into these silos. So
Yes. It's, I think of it like you and I were talking about this because I loved how you said it when we were talking about this yesterday. I think when you said, the whole point of this is to push people to relationships. Like that was your whole thing. It's like, hey, if we're using it wrong, if it's actually putting more steps in between us and other people or people and each other or whatever, which I thought was a good way to put it. And social media is a good example. It's like social media by itself, bad? No, of course not. It's just like a tool. It's just like AI
yeah,
or tech or whatever. It's like, how do you use it? And social media can be used to have a Facebook group of people that would have never known each other or connected, and now they're connected and they've built this community. Or it can be used, like you said, silos, and I actually don't have real life relationships and nobody really knows me. I just watch stuff online. So AI is similar to that too, which is great. If this is kind of like the I don't know, the theory level, high 30,000 foot level type discussions about AI, which is not what this webinar is really going to be about. I did want to hit that one question though. If you have more questions like that though, ask them in the chat, and if we have time, we'll come back to them. I'm sure a lot of the questions are going to come from what we're about to do, which is demonstrate what you can do with AI, with church.tech specifically. A lot of it started like with messages and, small group content and all that. So we'll look at that as well. But even if you're a kids pastor, student pastor, NextGen pastor, you're going to love this. So I'm going to jump over here where we're going to see Josh's screen here. And Josh, take it away. Where do you want to start with what it can do? And I'll kind of be like that end user who will be like, oh yeah, how about this? Can you do that? And if people have questions, they can ask them, and I'll ask those as well on their behalf.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, the way that we built church.tech starts kind of with a sermon. We've added tools that you don't need necessarily a sermon to be able to use AI well. But the way that we phrase this, honestly, I think has kind of kept children's youth ministers, young adult pastors, maybe even from utilizing it as much. And so I was really grateful for the opportunity to do this webinar with you, Nick, because there's a ton of tools in here that can actually help. And we've built a lot of tools into this that we're really hopeful are going to really enhance your ministry. So I'm just going to start from a sermon upload. You can think of that as a sermon upload, a teaching upload. If you're writing any kind of curriculum, you can upload that. You can do that by using a video file, an audio file. You can also upload via a link, so you can use Vimeo, Dropbox, Google Drive, or YouTube to upload content. You can also upload, we call this a manuscript, and that's honestly because we had the first few days that we rolled this out, we called it an outline, and people were putting 3 words in and going, why didn't it write my sermon for me? And we were like, well, that's not what it does. Like that's So at any rate, but you can copy paste in an outline here. If it's about a half a page of like bullet points, if you've got like a main text, that type of thing, it's still going to be able to do some really cool stuff. So I'm gonna just real quick. Here's a YouTube video that you did with Brad Lomenick. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to show you kind of, here's the process.
This is old school too, because Brad and I recorded that. This would have been during the pandemic and talking about trends that you were seeing in digital church. And it'll be funny because that's 4 years ago now that we recorded that, and just think how much has changed. Like AI wasn't a thing then, and churches were trying to figure out how do we do more online, especially when they couldn't meet in person. That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So all I did was drop the YouTube link in there, like from the actual URL. So just copy that, drop it in, and then I gave it a little bit of context of your name and Brad's name, and then I just hit go. And you can give it more context. You can also have it translated into Spanish from English or English from Spanish. So that's a fun little feature. I love doing these demos because it's like, it's like a baking show where you're like, oh, we're going to make this cake, and then I'm going to put it in the oven. I'm going to go to the other oven and pull it out of that oven. So here's the upload from earlier that we did. And so here's same video. I uploaded this just a few minutes ago. What it's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to create 2 different summaries, a longer summary and a shorter summary. It's going to write 5 discussion questions. And then if you don't like those discussion questions, you can click regenerate, tell it what you don't like, and it will rewrite it. Or you can just say, I just don't like this, and it will rewrite it. Each of those discussion questions, like we've put a decent amount of our expertise into these questions. So you don't have to use these. There's other ways to generate questions from within here. But if you're trying to create discussion questions, we made it so it's like asking about what was said, then it's giving some context so you understand why it's asking that question, and then it's giving you an application question to kind of help you think about, how do I actually like walk away from this different? So if you're using teaching content, these are hopefully going to be pretty helpful. Summaries people use for a host of different things, everything from website posts to like people will use this for like podcast show notes or YouTube show notes. It's also going to transcribe it. So now you've got a nice looking transcription of the entire podcast, Nick. It's going to create YouTube chapters. So you can take these and just copy paste them into the
description.
Like if I was Nick, I could actually drop it in here. Now the cool thing about that is, and if you're trying to engage more people online at all, and I would recommend we all do that, The beautiful thing about adding these YouTube chapters is when you do that, YouTube goes through and crawls those descriptions and actually breaks the video up into chunks based on your breakdown here. And it makes your video exponentially more likely to be found by somebody that maybe is not searching for the exact thing that your whole sermon is about or whatever, but it gets way more views. We have a ton of churches using this now, and they are all reporting like exponential growth in the number of people that are seeing their YouTube videos. Then it's also, we have a studio in here. So if you want to turn this into a podcast, obviously it's kind of already in like sort of a podcast format. So I can just click create a project. It's going to take the audio and give me the ability to upload an intro if I want to. So if I have an intro, I can do that. If I don't, I can record one. So we're recording live. Hopefully this didn't just mess up all of our connection.
I think it's all still working.
Yeah.
Two things going on at once.
If you don't, yeah, totally. If you don't have an idea of what to do for the intro or the outro, we can have AI, based on the context of the entirety of the message, actually write an intro script for you. And then you can just read it while you're recording it right here. And then once you've done this, you can actually upload music as well, and it will intelligently mix it underneath of the audio on the intro and outro. And then I export podcast, and I can name it, include the intro, and it will actually export it and intelligently mix the whole thing and give you a URL to point your RSS feed at. So if you don't have a podcast for like children's ministry content that you're producing every single week, and it would work to go, in an audio format, this is a great way to be able to create that really, really easily, as long as you're capturing even just the audio of it. We're getting ready to launch the ability to do the exact same things, but with video and for YouTube, and it'll auto post straight to YouTube for you. And then also do some recap projects that'll kind of take an overarching teaching and condense it to like quick cuts of 3 to 5 minutes of the recap. So
I have a question, but I think we're going to get to it later. Because okay. I think about like you can't even, I mean, the idea that it can recap, summarize, whatever. I know one of the things we're going to hit is like parent partnership and communication, because that's something I think about. Like I think about our children's ministry content is on YouTube because we use Orange at our church and they allow you to do that. And now, of course, our online audience in kids is a fraction of what it is in person, right? Like it's, I don't know, 10%. It's no different than in person, right? Our online, at my church, our online presence is good, but it's not like it's, I don't know, one of these churches where I was at a church recently where I think their online audience was twice the size of their in-person. It's like, yeah, that's not us. It's a fraction. Crazy. And then kids is even a fraction of that, but still it's there and it matters. But the other, and so I think even using this for summaries in those YouTube videos or whatever. But the other thing I thought of right away was like, oh man, like parent partnership easily could be sending them just what's the shortest summary, or even so example, our student ministry just had a fall retreat this weekend. And we always want to partner with parents on that. And it's like we could have uploaded the 4 messages that were taught to the students. And then here the parent gets an email with like, here's the summaries of each session. Here's the question to ask your student, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like this is, I'm generating a parent guide based on your conversation with Brad.
There you go.
Which may actually end up being really relevant. I'm not sure, but
might not either. Like, we'll see. It'll be funny. It was funny. I was looking at the chapter titles and I was like, oh, that's right. I forgot he uses that phrase, the last mile. Like I forgot some of the things that we talked about in there. It's like, that's great. He says that he talks about the last mile, meaning like, you think of like Uber deliveries or Amazon deliveries, like the last mile between your house and what's around you. How our church is going to connect there, as opposed to the old model of everybody drives to a church that could be 20 minutes away. In the non-church world, people are thinking, how do we get to the home? But it's like, again, that's the church. We have the greatest mission. We need to be in the home and partnering and all these 100%. Things. So what do we get here? 100%.
Yeah, so here's a parenting guide based on your conversation with Brad. So quick little like, hey, this is what this is. You can edit this. So like we basically, what we're building at church.tech is the ability to generate content both from start to finish. So if you're writing, if you're teaching, if you're writing curriculum, we have tools that can help you do that. And then we can help you refine it. And then we can help you actually get it into the hands of the people that need it, right? So, so for parent guide stuff, the cool thing is we created these pages, and basically we're trying to replace Google Docs, Microsoft Word, PDFs, all of that with these pages. So you can come in here, you've got traditional editing tools, but then you've got some pretty cool AI tools as well baked in here. So let me show you this. So if we're like, you know what, this is not quite long enough, I want a broader and expanded description here, I can click continue writing, and it's going to take the context, the whole conversation that you had with Brad and what's already on this page, and expand this section out for you. And then you can replace the text that's there if you want to. So here's the expanded version, right? Giving them a little more context. Maybe you don't want to do that, but if you did, you could click replace and it would replace the whole thing. You can click insert and now it drops it below there. So if there's parts of this that I really like and I want to keep, I can do that. If there's, I love all of the new content, but I want this sentence right here, I can do that. And now I've, got this expanded version, and then I've got conversation starters. So it's going to go through and basically give you some ideas on, hey, here's how to engage your kids based on the content that they experienced on Sunday. And so the cool thing about this is, I'm gonna shift gears here real quick, but keep this in mind, right? So if you wanted to get this out to your parents, the cool thing is you can copy the page URL. So just go to File and copy the page URL, and then I'll show you what this looks like live. You can text it to them, you can email it to them, and now this is the live version of this content. Let's say it was perfect, we were super happy with it. This is the live version of this content, and now I'll come back over here and I can go to View Analytics, and I can see how many page views, how much time people have spent on it, how many link clicks. So if you put clickable links in there, it'll track those and tell you how many people have actually clicked on them. And so it gives you the ability to really not just generate content all the way from writing, refining to actually, publishing, get it out there, but also then deliver really curated content to very specific audiences and then track the impact of that content. And honestly, I'm not going to jump into it, but that is where we're going with all of this, is the ability to really, curate the content for the individual very, very specifically, so that we could create a parent guide that takes into context how old their kids are. And with one link, I could send it to everybody here. And if you were logged in, which we just use a phone number basically, and once you log in, once you're logged in on that browser, and when you open it, it would look different for every single one of us, because it would take the context of where we're at in our parenting journey. And so anyhow, that's where we're headed on this front, is providing a whole lot more on that front. And then for church leaders, we want to be able to kind of roll up insights from this content. So we've got these editable sections where, you can add, well, that wasn't a really good place to add that, but, and now I'm having a hard time moving it. All right. So you can add editable sections where people can make notes and stuff like that. And without ever sacrificing the privacy of the individual, we can roll up insights, we can aggregate all of them and roll up insights to the church. And there's all kinds of protections and privacy restrictions that we baked into the platform to keep it from revealing to you any specific answer from any specific person. But really cool stuff on that front. So, what I was going to show you is
a little bit like how, I know some people watching maybe I don't even know about that or care about it, but it's a little bit like how, all of us know that you get personalized ads, right? You look at something on Amazon, then you're on Facebook 2 minutes later, and there it is. And some of that's just simple retargeting, it knew you were looking at that, and now it's hey, look at this.
Yep.
And then some people probably heard that story from years ago. Was it a Target or whatever, when the parent got, it's in what's his name's book, but anyway, the parent got something at home from Target about maternity stuff, about babies, and it turned out their teenage daughter was pregnant, and the Target algorithm just knew it. It didn't really know it. It just knew that the chance was high based on what had been purchased by that person over a period of time. And so there's that side of it that scares people off, oh my gosh, and now they have all this data on me and they're using it. And I love what you're saying is it can be personal but also private. It's personal.
Yep.
So it can be catered to you and can be more helpful to you, and then it's different for you than it is for me versus somebody else that's watching. But then the church and church.tech, it's not like you're getting that data or whatever. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, privacy and customization, personalization. That's great.
Yeah. I'm going to grab a sermon here real quick and show you kind of some other stuff that you can do that's just really fun. So the playground is where I would really recommend people like go and hang out. Pages is cool. It can generate some standardized templates and really quickly. So like push of a button and you get standardized content from any
Mm-hmm.
new thing that you upload. But the playground's where you can go and you can like create all kinds of really cool stuff. And particularly, we have baked an enormous amount of our expertise on the AI front into this. And so if you jump into the playground and click on save prompts, you're going to find that there are a whole bunch of prompts that we've added to this that allow you to do all kinds of really cool things. And my favorite one is this. We can take a sermon and generate children's ministry curriculum from that sermon. So
Mm,
not translate this into third grade reading level, it's writing curriculum. So it's going to give you a
yeah.
welcome game. It's going to give you worship song suggestions. It's going to give you the like, hey, here's how to help the kids find the passage in scripture, an application story. It's going to give you discussion questions, an activity or craft. Even all the way down to kind of some take home stuff of like, hey, here's what you can kind of pass on to the parents. Now we also have a corresponding thing that does a parent guide that is designed specifically to correspond with this lesson.
Yep.
But you can so you can do this, and then the cool thing is with a click of a button I can turn this into a page and then take that link and text it to all my parents or email it to all my parents and see how they're engaging with that. Same thing with this children's ministry curriculum. So I can copy it right here, but if I click this,
You're going to make a page
yep,
that then you can share the link of to anybody. So like all the volunteers can just get this link via email or
exactly.
text or
Yep,
something like that. Okay, that makes
yep,
sense. And
and
you
it's
could still edit it
formatted.
here if you wanted.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the things that we say about everything that we create on this. Our goal is to have it be 90% done for you, but you are still the final filter. Ethically, I don't think you should ever take this and just send it out. Like you should get into it, you should edit it, you should make sure that it's exactly how you want it to be said.
Yeah.
You can use AI to continue to do that, like back over in the playground, but it's a really great thing to like get you out of the gate, hopefully really close to done, but you still
Mm-hmm.
need to actually engage with that content. And
Let
then
me
there's
ask
all
this
kinds of,
question. This is like on behalf of
yeah,
children's pastors everywhere, because and actually in the comments, maybe they can help me out. If you lead children's ministry, do you edit your curriculum that you buy? Like if you write, tell me that. If you write your own, because then this would be really helpful for you, right? Because now you're creating a lot of content yourself. But most kids pastors I know are using a curriculum. But I would say I don't know what percent everybody watching would guess. I'd be curious what you all think, but I would guess 80% at least, maybe 90% of all children's ministries are editing whatever curriculum they use. Now, it might be as simple as like a formatting thing, and we're editing to remove that. Nobody needs the I don't know, the legal language at the beginning of a curriculum or something like that. But most people
yeah,
too are picking things. And like, for example, this, and again, I'm sure Kidmin people will relate, but like I could totally see most curriculums nowadays are creating more content than you would normally need because they're trying to cater to different churches. Like one church has a service that's an hour long, another one has a service that's an hour and a half. One church has 1 hour of children's ministry, one has two. So there's usually more than less. Like, could you paste in your curriculum in here and be like, hey, pick three of the five activities and cater it towards ones that are simpler, cost less with resources, and don't use paint or food.
yep,
Like
yeah,
that's
100%.
literally what I would pay
Love it.
paste
I
in
would
there.
have
And
said
then
glitter. Don't use
yeah,
glitter.
oh
That's
yeah,
my,
that's that.
yeah.
Like we need to build a prompt basically just for that. It's like
I mean, we can
simplified,
do that.
yeah,
And then the
simplified
beautiful
kids
thing is
ministry
you can
curriculum.
actually save it as well. You can save that prompt so that you have it. It lives over here. You can create your own prompts, save them, and you can even share prompts that you create with everybody on your staff team. So like, there's no limit
Mm-hmm.
to how many people you can have inside of the platform. So you can have your whole
Yeah,
staff team. You can have volunteers in here, and then everybody. We're trying to create a context and environment where you have a trusted partner who's helping you be able to use AI really, really effectively and not just like generate a whole bunch of content because the world doesn't need more content. What we need is content that's really specific to the people that we're
yeah,
trying to reach and
yeah.
deliver it and actually see, oh, okay, how is this actually working
That's
and
great.
engaging. But yeah. Anyhow,
Yeah, because I could see, because you
sorry, that
could,
was
I mean, a lot of times editing, like Veronica said, we slightly edit, which I think that is a lot of churches. They're not like really editing. Maybe they're mixing in their church name or whatever. They're removing
yeah.
some of this stuff that's like nobody needs to see that. No volunteer cares about that. And part of me wonders with this kind of tool, if you probably would have like, here's what our standard post edit version looks like, and then somehow
Yep.
get that saved as a prompt. And then, man, you just paste it in a week and boom, it's knocking out weeks of curriculum at a time. You're still going to go in, like you said, and double check, but it could just save hours in the editing process. We did a survey recently about KidMin curriculum. I have to look it up, but I think it was like, I think the average children's pastor was spending 8 hours a month editing curriculum. I think was what it was, or 8 point something.
Wow.
And it's like, what if
Yeah.
that was two? 6 hours may not seem like a lot, but 6 hours times 12 months a
Oh,
year
it's huge.
times and what
Yeah.
you could do with those 6 hours. Imagine 6 hours spent more on recruiting volunteers. Like that'd be
Yep.
amazing, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we have a lot of churches that do exactly what you're talking about. They bring their curriculum into the platform, and then they've actually designed their own prompt to take that and align it exactly as they want it, and then
Mm-hmm.
they literally like take it and send it out to their team that way. And it's honestly like we're getting really really good feedback around that of like this gives us the ability to with the click of a button get like 98% there because
Mm-hmm.
they've really refined their prompt down to like this is exactly what I want. And there's some science to prompting, so if you're like hey, I have no clue what that even is. We have some training videos baked into the platform for it, but we have a every other week gathering of like I think it's like 180 churches now that jump on this Zoom gathering every other Wednesday, and one of the things we do is we talk about here's how to prompt well, here's how to use this well, so that you can get the
Mm-hmm.
outcomes you want. But yeah, yeah,
That's great.
absolutely.
How about let's shift a little bit now to student ministry, because student ministry is where, again, I would say a lot of churches are using some type of curriculum, meaning what that would mean is it's a pre-written series or message, but then they're making it their own. So there's that
Yep.
version. But then I also want to hit like, which I'm sure is what lead pastors could do in it, which is I'm writing it from scratch. What do I help? Because it's not just, I mean, I know initially church.tech was almost like a, hey, your sermon's done, now let's use it in other ways, and it still does all that. But now it's
Yep.
also helpful to use it while writing. So, and I mean, some kids people are probably writing their own content too, but specifically like messages, whether you're a youth pastor, lead pastor, whatever, what are some tools that would be helpful there?
Yeah. So over here in the ministry tools tab, these tools don't require a sermon upload, and we have a lot of sermon writing tools in here. Now I'll say they're ethical sermon writing tools. You're not going to get anything from us that's like write me a sermon about this, and it just does it for you. We have a few tools that help you brainstorm, and that's really one of the important things to be thinking about AI as like a an assistant who helps you stay unstuck, who basically knows
Yeah.
almost everything about everything that's ever been written and can help you stay unstuck. And so when it comes to like writing, one of the things that we would advise you to do is like use this to use AI to help study. And to cut down on the amount of time it takes to study. Like if you were like, oh man, I want to do this New Testament, Greek word study on light from John 1, 1 through 13, let's say. It would take you a long time to actually delve into that and really do an excellent word study. Um, but the cool thing is, and I didn't make one of these ahead of time, so we'll have to wait for this one. But now I can use AI to do that in like minutes. Like it will literally take like a minute for it to do a very thorough study on that front. You also let's see here. We got family devotional. So this is like just from a scripture reference. It'll write a family devotional for you for your people. And then we also have we probably should put these in both, but for now we've just sort of aligned these to preaching. So there's all kinds of brainstorming. What are the main points from specific biblical texts, historical and cultural background of the text, commentary summaries. So you can jump in here and pick. All of these are open source commentaries. So we're working on some publisher deals where we can bring those in, but from an ethics standpoint, we're trying to really lead the way on saying like, hey, we are not going to pull in other people's copyrighted content and take advantage of the fact that other AI systems have done that. So that's why this works this way, just so you know. We will have more coming on this front. Find an illustration like this will, like, you give it a little bit of context of like, hey, here's my audience, here's the age range, right? Tone, you can choose from the different, like, what do you want? Sports, you're looking for business, probably not business and children's ministry, I don't know, like maybe Bob Iger is applicable to third graders, but I'm not sure. As
long as he keeps creating great movies that kids like.
Yes. Maybe he is. I don't know. That's funny. That would be really funny.
You know what I did? This reminds me, Josh, when I was doing that small group, I did ask, and this was before church.tech was doing all this stuff. I did create the small group questions in church.tech, but I went to like Chat GPT or something and was like, hey, we're reading this book, this chapter. What's like a icebreaker? And you know what? Yep. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. But I'm telling you, it was good. And many times, most of the time, the icebreaker wasn't just good or fun or whatever. It related to the content. It was like, that was a really good, so that's why the analogy thing I think of, like, that's a good, because I get stuck on that. Like that's one of the things I'm not, there's just some people that teach a lot. They're really good at just saving stories, or something happens to them in their daily life. I mean, you experience this as a lead pastor. You probably get good at like, oh yeah, I need to remember that because that's going to make a great illustration. I'm not so great at that. So this is be a helpful tool for me of like, oh yeah, let me get, what's a story or something, an illustration, an analogy I can use that will relate. I love that.
Yeah, this is a really fun one as well if you've got curriculum to use, because you can just drop in your curriculum, your sermon, whatever it is, like if you're youth ministry, and it will give it some details about your audience, like, oh, this is like for freshmen through seniors in high school, and it will come up with like ideas for how to make it more engaging and interactive for you, which is really cool. Modern day analogies for biblical stories, that one's crazy. Sometimes you get a little bit of crazy stuff in there where it's just like, I don't know that I would use that.
It's got like an alien analogy.
It gets a little wild on that one sometimes. But but yeah, and then we've also got like just a whole host of like teaching tools on this front that really help. And then there's some really cool strategy tools in here as well. So if you're like, hey, we're trying to reach, I go to the Foundry Church in Baltimore. So let's see here. We'll do
Gen Z strategies.
Yeah. So I'm trying to reach Gen Z, and it's actually going to pull in demographic context from Baltimore and help me think through like how should we be reaching people. Here's our word study. Forgot about this. It's over here now. So here you go.
Oh, interesting.
Definitions, so you're context.
Yeah.
It's a pretty
great.
Solid word study, right?
That's awesome.
So,
we have a couple questions too. That I mean, again, keep asking them, everybody, because we can hit more at the end. But what about graphics and images? Kimberly asked about that. Like that AI generated that one of the picture of the dad with the kids, right?
Yeah. So we aren't doing that yet. We are getting ready to release that, but I'll just tell you, I think at this point, the ability to reliably generate images that you're going to be like, this is awesome, is not quite there, especially if you want any kind of wording in them. I'll tell you my favorite tool for this.
I've used it. I mean, if I were sharing my screen, we used AI to create an amazing picture. So our church does this arts camp every year. We did Annie Jr. and we needed a picture of like what it looked like from outside of Orphan Annie's orphanage of New York in the 1930s or whatever, and it was awesome. I'll look at that. Like,
you want me to stop? Do you have it? You want me to stop sharing?
No, it's okay. I'll see if I can pull it up. But I'll tell you. Here's what I was going to say. We got a great image eventually. Josh, I feel like it took me 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so many prompts.
It's really hard to do well.
Now that was unique because it's like it's trying to make a picture of something there's not a great color picture of, and whatever. Something like dad and 2 kids seems easy, and we're not that far removed when some of these AI images would be really weird, and it's like the person's got like a third hand or something because it's what I mean. Like it's getting better quickly. But there's ones where like it's like a room, and if you look closely, you can tell like that's not really a real room because like the bed is connected to the wall in a weird way, and there's another, it's like a window where a door should be or something. I don't know, goofy stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it
Yeah.
is progressing fast, but I get that it's not there yet.
Yep. So here's our Gen Z strategies, Doc. We don't need to jump into this too deep,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's cool though.
the image stuff is coming along. It's just it's not easy yet, and until we can set it up in a way that like makes it a lot easier, we're probably not going to bake it into the platform. We're trying to save you a ton of time rather than put you in a
Yeah,
situation where you're frustrated with something that we're putting in your hands. So
yeah. Which right
um,
now, Canva and getting a stock photo for a lot of that
yeah.
stuff. I mean, now did it use AI to make that picture of the dad and the two kids
Oh,
in the parent
I
guide,
misunderstood. No, it didn't. We dropped that in. So one of the things that you can do is you can add your own
like
let me see.
media or something?
You can add your own images and stuff. So
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know where that was here. We'll just go into one, and it'll like on
Yeah, it was
pages.
the parent guide. So you've put that image in there. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
we
And
dropped
it's
that
you.
in, but you can save images to the platform and add them, and then yeah, you can modify the look and feel of those images a little bit, like just like borders,
Sure.
stuff like that, using
Yeah.
AI inside the platform currently. But
Yep. That
yeah,
makes sense.
we'll get there.
Okay.
I think one of the things we're going to start out with is like generate like coloring pages. We've had a lot of churches ask for that for like little
Oh
kids and
yeah.
stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
That's easy to do. So
That's a
if you're
good.
not
Yeah, that's a
doing
good
that,
idea.
like
Yeah.
GPT, you could probably do it on the free version of GPT, honestly.
Yeah. That's a great
Yeah.
idea. Let me ask you about this. Kimberly had also asked with creating slides. Now it can't create slides yet on the presentation side, I'm guessing.
So it can't create the imagery of slides, but I will tell you if you want to. I've absolutely no problem telling you about really cool stuff. So like, ideogram is the best image generation tool out there, in my opinion,
Hmm.
and we're constantly looking. So like, here's I said generate an image of Jesus walking on water. This is like a claymation or something like that. Is what it looks like
Mm-hmm.
too a little. Um, so this and then Gamma. I actually just found out about this one. I think it's gamma.ai.
Now, to Kimberly's point about the slides, though, what I'm sure it would do great, though, is hey, from my transcript or outline or manuscript or whatever, can you make slides like the text that's going to go on slides? And it'd be really smart is saying, hey, make these items slides, almost like an outline in a sense. I'm sure that would
Yes,
be
you
good.
definitely can do that. In the playground, you can go to save prompts, and we have a sermon
Sermon slides.
slides
Okay, yeah,
prompt,
yeah, that's
and
great.
it will recommend what slides to use. Yep.
Scott asked what was the tool you were going to mention. Was that ideogram or was that something else?
Oh,
Is it
Gamma
I?
is
Okay.
the slide presentation tool. I played around with this one for the first time yesterday. I looked at it like way back, in AI
Yeah,
terms,
yeah.
way back was 6 months ago.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
sure, sure.
way back 6 months ago, and and it was not very good. It's pretty stinking good. Like
Hmm,
I was kind of floored. Let me see if I can log in on this and be able to
interesting.
show you all what it looks
Just
like.
type just
It was
type your password in while I'll watch it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll see my password going
Uh,
in.
okay, so that was the image software that you like is ideogram or is that what you said?
Yeah, IDEOGRAM. It's
Okay,
the
yeah, I
best
got
one
it.
out there in my opinion. It's not that expensive either. I usually use Safari, which is where all my passwords are saved, which is why I can't log in
Yeah,
on
yeah,
this.
yeah. I see here it's like there's a free $7 a month, something like that. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it's not too expensive.
Let me
Gamma
ask this
is
because with
not bad either, but yeah, go ahead.
yeah, with the time we have left, the other use case I think about for kids and student ministry, and again maybe some of this falls into the partnering with parents thing too, but like social media. I mean, obviously, if it's a message, I mean that's great because you do video clips and things like that. Tell us a little bit about that. But if I put my family ministry hat on, I mean we do social media. And I could see coming up with just the template is here's what we post every week, but using church.tech to help you come up with the actual content of that post based off of what you shared that weekend or that Wednesday night at student ministry.
Yep. So I'm just going to type in a prompt here. It's not going to be a great one, but we'll play around with this. Make it aligned to. This is a bad way to prompt this, just so you know. So it'll still do a decent job. But at any rate, this is not how I would write this if I was writing it with more thought. Make it aligned to and man. Why can I not spell?
Audiogram
Sorry, guys.
in the comments over here for people, and the other one was gamma for slides. Yeah, because I did this. Because, like, I mean, in the early days of church.tech, I'd upload the message. I would get the summary for YouTube. I'd get a small group guide, and I got some social media posts. Like, that was just built in, too.
We have social stuff. It's not very good, honestly. And if you give it, so here's what I would say about having it write posts for students and children's posts and stuff like that is give it the context of the age that you're like trying to appeal to, or like, hey, I'm trying to appeal to parents of kids that are this old, right? So here you go. Instagram. It's going to give you an image or video idea. We've got that kind of baked into the back end of like, hey, if you ask for social stuff, it's usually going to give you an image or a video idea. And then, captions with, these are all optimized. So anything that it's giving you on hashtags are usually optimized for that specific platform, they are optimized for that platform. And then for TikTok, it's going to actually give you a more thorough, like, hey, here's an idea of like what you can do for this because it's video. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, any last questions from anybody else before we begin to wrap up? I'm going to ask that. But then, Josh, what else? Is there any last pieces you want to hit or show us or things that it can do that we want to make sure we touch on before we leave? Just one thing to mention, we kind of alluded to this, but like if you are creating, like you're a student pastor writing your own content, using this to help create your small group discussion guides, amazing. It's great for adult ministry. Like our church is not I know a lot of churches do this where they have small group guides for like every message they ever do. Every series, like it's just part of what they do. That's not exactly what we do. But now, ever since this, it's like, well, it's always an option. You know what I mean? Like we could do it now. Because there was times when we had, Joe on our staff would write these, and there's time spent that Joe would have to spend on writing that. And now it's like, you could wait till the Sunday morning. It's preached at the first service, put it in here, and you got small group discussion questions in 15 minutes after you've, made any tweaks or adjustments you want to make, which is really helpful. So that's just so people know, that's another, I think, common use case for like a student ministry for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is, we designed it to be able to reduce the amount of time that it takes you to produce something really, really excellent. And so, and we're constantly trying to improve it. I'm in Colorado at a tiny little conference with 13 really innovative churches right now, just letting them beat the platform up and tell us how to make it better. So, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I'm going to take us off the screen share there, but we can always jump back if there's anything else at the last minute. If you have any last questions, let us know. But if you want to, somebody asked earlier if there's a discount for church plants. There is a discount in general, right, that they can get for watching this and being on our list here. You go to church.tech, use the code BOOST. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, the code BOOST. Yeah. Gets you 30% off your first 3 months. And if the price is like, if you're like, hey, I can't afford this, it doesn't fit into my ministry budget, reach out to Nick or myself, and we have a couple churches who have provided some grants and stuff, so we can always work with you on that. Yep.
Yeah, well, one of them said church plants. That's close to our heart, so I feel like
100%. Yeah, we also
for whoever said that, we could definitely do something for that. I would say, and here's what I would say too for people listening, because again, most of our audience are in roles like me, they're NextGen or kids or students or whatever. To me, this is a no-brainer tool for any pastor, lead pastor, anybody that's communicating, writing content weekly. If you're a student pastor, write your own curriculum. I also think it's great for kids and students too. But sometimes if I'm going to ask my pastor if we can get this tool, you're probably better off helping them know what they can do with it. Your group's pastor and all that kind of stuff as well, as opposed to, hey, just want this for kids ministry or just want it for student ministry. It's like, maybe it's not going to be as open to that. But when it's like, hey, for the whole church and can do all these things, which Josh, you and I talked about, I still do want to do this. We have this, we'll make a recording of this, Scott, will be available so people can absolutely watch this on a replay. I'll send a link out for that. And I think I think I lost my thought there. I was going somewhere with that, and I
If
totally
you're
forgot.
trying to get your lead pastor, first of all, you can have an unlimited number
I
of
know what I was
users
going to
on the
say.
platform. We don't
That's
restrict
good.
that.
That's helpful.
I think that's where you were going, maybe.
No, I was
You
going
can,
to you, and I talked to you about we have enough because one of the random things that Ministry Boost does now is we help churches get the nonprofit security grant, which has nothing
oh
to
yeah,
do or very little to do with kids or student ministry. We now have a lot of people on our list. We've always had some lead pastors on our list, campus pastors, executive, everything. But now it's to the point where like I think maybe 20-30% of the people on our email list are not next gen. They're in these other roles. So I'd already asked you, Josh, can we do another one of these? But we'll target lead pastors and campus pastors and like groups pastors and that type. So we might do that too. So like if for you all, I'll maybe we'll email everybody. It's like, hey, share this with your lead pastor or groups pastor or whoever. But this would help. They get to see a lot of what they would use writing messages and
yeah.
sharing content and
And
all that stuff
I
too.
just sent you a link, Nick, for that if you want to drop in for everybody. It's literally like a hey, what can lead pastors do on church.tech, and it like lists everything
Mm,
and gives like a 2 to 3 minute video for each one,
that's great.
so they can kind of see. Yeah. So if you're trying to
That's
convince your
awesome.
lead pastor, hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for doing this. I feel like the church.tech is a little bit like AI because I feel like every week I feel like there's something new that it's doing that I didn't know it was doing last week or whatever. That's probably not fair. It's probably not every week, but every month, you know what I mean? I feel like we just spoke at Exponential Conference in April, and then here it is 6 months later, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's like a whole other suite of things, which is cool. So I love that you're keeping up with that and finding new ways to use it. And there's probably still a ton of untapped potential in the kids and youth spaces as well. So I love that you're doing some things there to help those leaders, which is great.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking time to do this and share with our audience. I hope for all of you, I hope it was really helpful. And like Josh said earlier, email us if you have questions or if you're somebody else on your staff wants some help with this or wants to see some demos or examples or whatever. Just let us know. We'd love to help you however we can. Thanks, Josh. Thanks everybody
Absolutely.
for watching.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. It's such a fun time. Yeah.
Yep. See you guys.